Should we just get started?
Can you hear me? How's everybody doing? Good? Cool. Yeah, we can get started. Dove is not going to be here because of Passover Eve. And I think Matt's also not available. I had a few things I want to talk about. First is just a good reminder for everybody in general that we should always consider the context when writing issue titles and description. It helps everyone out, and we can become more efficient as a team and as an organization whenever we write better issue descriptions, so we don't have to follow all the discussions and merge requests, comments to figure out the context. So just a good reminder for everyone to sometimes it's good to take a step back and look at it from a different lens, from a customer perspective, or from, or Sid's perspective, just a little bit removed from the current context that you might be working on the issue. So that helps everyone out. So just a good reminder on that. Any questions about that specifically? Cool. And then my second one is that we had some want to recap on the retro takeaways, and if someone wants to take notes, that would be great. So a few things from the retro that we want to kind of talk about. We had some conversations about how with logging specifically, in terms of some of the features, feeling like it was potentially lower quality than we expected. And so with that, we've had some more conversations. A lot of it came from miscommunication, and I think it's good for engineers to continually try to push the line of like a smaller iteration. But ultimately, when it comes to product iteration, the PM needs to be the final DRI on it. And so we want to make sure that I want to encourage everyone to, if they feel like there is a way to make a product feature smaller and ship it independently, to exercise that and push for that. But ultimately, be sure to ping Dove and make sure that he makes the final call on that, so that he knows how to, so he can take the responsibility if it needs to be, if the scope needs to be the same, as well as if it's cut, how to prioritize that follow-up. So just wanted to reiterate that that's going to be key moving forward. And then as we do that, we want to make sure we document these as issues, follow-up issues that are very clear, kind of here's a feature gap that we're explicitly deciding not to implement for now. It may seem like a bug, but we're not classifying as a bug because we're intentionally deciding not to move forward with this feature. So hopefully that helps a little bit with kind of understanding whether we're decreasing the quality versus like trying to be small iterations, and kind of trying to find the right balance for that. So hopefully that should help. If as we move forward, if we develop features and we don't document kind of the gaps that take place, I would still consider those bugs. So we should always make sure that we document those feature gaps as issues, so that we're intentionally deciding not to add certain features rather than not realizing this doesn't work until later on, which I would consider the second part to be more of a bug than intentional descoping. And as we move forward, we're going to try to find better ways to refine issues so that the team has small scopes to start with, so that the opportunities for cutting scope during development is less than it is today. But those kind of play hand in hand. If there's any questions about that specific part? Nope. Okay. And then the other thing is there was some comments about trying to get better user feedback on the kind of like the logging stuff. It felt like when we're developing logging, there wasn't as much feedback loop from a user testing perspective. So that's something that we're going to try to improve on, to make sure that as we develop, we're able to test and validate our assumptions, making sure that we're building for the right personas and aligning certain decisions to align with that. So I think an early example that was discovered is kind of I'm not sure how familiar everyone here is with logs. I'm not super familiar, but there's a conversation about whether the logs should be in UTC time or the local time of the person's computer. And definitely that was an area that was uncovered of like being a point of confusion for users. And so that's one of those examples where having a tighter connection with us and user testing, even internally, could potentially mitigate some of those risks where we make certain product decisions or technical decisions that may not be as consistent or aligned with what we're trying to build. Any questions for that? Cool. Then on to you, Ruben.
Okay, so we have an issue for decoupling the environments and the metrics dashboard, because that was a topic that was discussed in today's meeting with the SRE team. So I just wanted everyone to have a look at the issue and maybe think about any consequences that are not yet described in the description. For example, current predefined variables that we have, like CI environment slug, will have to be removed, because if you don't know which environment the user wants to see data on, you can't really substitute environment variables. But I wonder if we can automatically have a drop down at the top of the metrics dashboard which has all the environments values, something like that, which will prevent us from having to deprecate variables that are quite well used. Dheeraj, you had a question?
Yeah, so when you said it would be nice if we had a drop down with all the possible environment values, don't we already have that in the monitoring dashboard right now where we list all the possible environment names and the user can select one of the environments? I'm a bit
Yeah, but
confused.
that's because it's coupled with the environment, right? So if you see the URL of the metrics dashboard, the environment ID is in it. So that's how we know that for a particular dashboard, we should substitute a particular environment slug or name. So if you decouple that, if you have the metrics dashboard display independent of the environment, you don't know which environment's data you should be substituting with.
Okay, so instead of relying on the URL to understand the current environment, we're using other ways to figure out which environment the dashboard should be executed in. Is that what we're trying to get at finally?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So to give you an example of Grafana, everything over there is a variable that you have drop downs for, right? There's no, it's not like GitLab, so there's no predefined variables. Well, there are, but it's not related to environment data and stuff. So we are kind of going towards that direction.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Yeah, one concern I had, especially with just the environment, is from what I understand, these variables and values are going to be in the YAML file, right?
Yeah.
So if that is the case, if the user provides a list of environments, I wonder if it would be confusing because users are already used to a set of environments, the GitLab environments, and then they won't find all the possible environments. Instead, they'll just see a predefined list. So I wonder if that would create any kind of confusion because we're using the environment label, but we're not actually showing all the GitLab environments.
You mean if the user has to enter all the possible environment values in the dashboard YAML?
Yeah.
Yeah, ideally, if we could automatically display, a drop down for variables like that, because we already know all the possible environment values, right? We have the project, so. But you would have to detect if the dashboard actually uses that variable. Otherwise, you'll just have a spurious drop down at the top that has no use.
I had a somewhat related question. We have another feature that we want to probably tackle on for later milestone, which is supporting different variables on the YAML files. But I remember that the CI slug was going to be deprecated because of a security concern. Does that mean that we're not going to support any more variables in the future, or perhaps we might want to look into another type of implementation?
I'm not sure which issue you mean.
I'll get the issue for you in a second.
I know there was a security issue about supporting numeric variables, but the slug is a string, so there shouldn't be any problem.
The issue is in the document. It's an epic, actually.
I'm not sure about this. I'll have to go through it. If anyone else has any idea.
Basically, what this issue, well, epic, what we want to accomplish with this epic is that we want to have the control of the multiple labels in Prometheus as dropdowns. So we have for example, we have the environment label, and then we can have some other types of labels. The SRE team loves to use the type and stage labels to swap between different production environments like cannery, production, staging. And they also do type, so they don't have to change the context of what they're looking at. They just have to change the components that they want to look at. So for AppDex scores, they have for Git services, web services, Sidekick, and CI registry, I believe. So the queries are the same, but the labels are not. So this dropdowns, well, this is something that we want to do to be as close to Grafana as possible. But if we duplicate the environments dropdown, to me feels that we might not want to support variables in the future. That's why I was asking.
It feels like to move forward, we kind of maybe need a spike to technical spike to really understand what it would take to decouple them. I think for the most part, everyone would probably agree it should be decoupled in some ways. Like I shouldn't have to right now. So I'll give you an example is, let me share my screen. For setting up the metrics dashboard on GitLab.com, we've set it up a manual connection through like the Prometheus endpoint. But then I'm not able to load this unless I create an environment. So then I had to create a dummy environment, which I just called placeholder environments to get metrics working. And it's kind of a dummy thing, but I needed this environment in order to get anything displaying on here, which I think it's a really not great flow because it's like clearly unrelated to anything that I'm doing in what we're trying to do in this situation. So we need to figure out how to decouple that. But how we do it, I think it sounds like there's different thoughts. I do think long-term we want to add ability to add drop-downs for variables, but we also want to make sure we take advantage of the single application DevOps lifecycle stuff. So maybe there's a way to kind of meet both without requiring certain things to load this feature. Does that sound good with everybody?
Yeah, I think a spike would be good.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Spark is, I think, what we need. It's kind of a crucial decision to our architecture.
Yeah.
Cool. Ruben, would you mind taking the lead on updating your issue to convert to a spike to kind of cover kind of what we talked about in this meeting?
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay, and then we'll try to see if we can schedule it for next release or the release after to investigate, because I think we need to figure this out sooner rather than later. Cool. So yeah, I wanted to give a brief update as well on kind of how we're doing on dog fooding metrics. So thanks to the help of Jose and the SRE team, we were able to actually get runbooks to load the metrics dashboard on GitLab.com. Previously, we weren't able to load it, but only on ops because of some proxy rules with the way we've set up our the Prometheus metrics. We don't want everybody in the world to be able to pull all our metrics. And so ops is kind of firewalled. So in that ops instance was able to pull it. But the problem is ops only deploys on a monthly basis because ops instance needs to be stable. And that has been challenging for us to iterate quickly on the metrics dashboard. And through some work with the SRE team, we're able to, for now, able to pull the information through. Long term, we want to add OAuth support to manual Prometheus instance configuration so that we can be more secure with how we're putting that information and connecting it. This is set for 13.0, and this would actually enable our team to use the same Prometheus endpoint, which is here, using OAuth with our GitLab credentials to actually start pulling those metrics for our development usage as well, to like pull in the data. So I think that should be helpful for everybody. So I'm very excited for this feature, and it doesn't seem too complicated, but fingers crossed. So yeah, so that's really cool to see the progress here. The goal of end of Q1, which is end of April, is still to replace the Grafana dashboard. So this is the original dashboard that we're trying to replace as kind of our OKR, replacing this with the metrics dashboard, not having the thresholds and not having this text part, but the data being the same. So we still have a little bit of kinks to work out, and we're working through that. But I just wanted to show that the progress we're making here, and it's really great. There is the caveat, though, is that this SLA dashboard, in order for us to remove this, it's also a customer-facing dashboard that people use to make sure our SLA scores are good. So in order to delete this or have this page literally say, go to the metrics dashboard URL, we need to make sure this is public to the world. And right now, this is tied to developer and above permission scope access for this. Even though Runbook's project is open, the metrics dashboard is only available for internal project users only. So we have this issue that was originally stated for, I don't remember where it was set for. Yeah, set for 13.0 as a filler issue. The ability to toggle public or private for your metrics dashboard. And so there's some preliminary conversation about an MVC, maybe adding kind of a checkbox here that says, make this public. Default is scope to developer or above. That would, go ahead.
I think this is tied to the coupling environment with the metrics dashboard. As far as I know, we don't have any kind of policies again around the metrics dashboard itself. It's only under the scope of the environment. So it's kind of follows to this previous topic.
So you'd say it's related to the spike, and we would have to do that first, maybe?
Maybe there's a way around. Maybe we could like try to add the dedicated policies for that, but for sure it's related.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. So maybe not as straightforward as I originally thought, but we need to add the ability to make it public so that we can meet our OKR for Q1 end of April, be able to have this page basically have a link here that says go to the metrics dashboard, and everyone on the internet can go to this page. So I was trying to get a good feel. I know Dove is out, so I wanted to get a good feel from the team to see whether this is something that we could add on as a deliverable to our existing workload, or whether we could add this and deprioritize something else, or we could potentially push it for like a deliverable for 13.0, like try to do it the first week and still with continuous delivery, get it on GitLab.com before end of April. but that might be pushing it. So I wanted to have that conversation and see what the team thinks about this.
I have a quick question about the public visibility. So when you say anybody on the internet should be able to view this page, do we expect people to be able to log in to GitLab to see these, or can they just see, because Grafana right now, we can just view without having to register or log in. So what is
so
our approach?
I would by public, that's a good question. By public, I mean probably the same access as seeing the project details. So right now the project details right now it's a public, anyone can access without authentication. So I know you can do public, project, internal, or private. So I would assume that that's a good question. So like the toggle would be inherit the highest permission or the lowest permission privileges. So in this case, since runbooks is public, it would be public. You don't need authentication. If it's internal, then you need authentication. And then if it's private, then it would default to the developer. And we should probably document that in that issue to make sure everyone's on the same page. But does that help clear it up? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So it would be really incredible if we can pull it off to by the end of Q1 have this page go away and just have a text box that says go to here. And this works for our customers, because then they can start associating metrics dashboard as more usable than Grafana and see our movement towards that. So from go ahead, Ruben.
Sorry, I was going to talk about what Nikolaj said. I'm not sure if it needs to be decoupled first from environments before you can change the permission to view the page, because we can change the permission for like one particular controller endpoint. What do you think?
If I heard you correctly, because it was a little bit sketchy, as far as I checked right now, we had this metrics dashboard in the environments controller, and it authorized the read environment permissions. So basically, yeah, we most likely will be able to override the permissions just for the one endpoint of this controller. So we may have workaround for this, but nevertheless, it is somehow related to the decoupling environments with the metrics dashboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think long term we have to decouple, and it'll probably impact this too. So in terms of capacity from the backend side, anybody have capacity to tackle this, or? Because I feel like front end part is pretty straightforward, and I think we would be able to do it. I'm just not sure about the back end part.
I can start work on it.
You're speaking about.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nicola, were you going to say something? I wasn't sure.
I wouldn't ask if you are what are you talking about the spike, tackling the spike, or just changing the visibility of the dashboard,
visibility.
just to be clear on this.
Yeah.
Okay. If we try to work around, it shouldn't be that that much work to apply it. So I might have some capacity at the end of this milestone.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have capacity this milestone?
I think I might be able to work on it next week.
I can take a look at it as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so if Ryan and Ruben, you have capacity to look at it like this week, next week, I think that'd be great. Yeah, if we can ship it in this release, it'll be it would look really great on the team. So let's see if we can make it happen. And then front end we can support. I think we're just adding a toggle, so it's fairly straightforward on our side. Cool. All right. So I'll plan on that. I'll let Matt know, keep him in the loop, and let Dove know as well. And hopefully we can get the ball rolling on this one pretty quickly. Cool. And then the last thing I want to share is, I'm not sure if y'all saw, but we have a new really cool perk of GitLab is with the COVID-19, we are now able to expense up to 2 meals, up to $25 as long as we virtually hang out and eat together. So it'd be nice if we can see a time that works with people in the monitor stage, so monitor APM and monitor health, and see what best times we can pick before the end of the month. And yeah, I know that unfortunately some places all even takeout is closed, so I'm sorry for y'all, but you're welcome to eat with us. But for the other ones, yeah, I think this is a cool perk, and hopefully we can use this time to hang out. And we can also use one of the social call times as well. I know we have those scheduled. So please give feedback on the issue. I'm hoping we can take an action on something sooner rather than later. So yeah. Any questions, feedback?
It's an amazing idea.
Yeah, sounds good.
Jose, were you gonna say something?
No. Just saying, just like everybody else. Good idea.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's about it. We'll keep up on the issue for the public visibility async. And yeah, I hope y'all have the greatest day and an awesome week. Y'all take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too.